Okay, this is the fifth stage of this Casa Gaspar orthographic and axonometric drawing session. We've got the four main components now. We've got plan, section, elevation, and a fairly simplified axonometric. So we now need to turn our attention to the layout to get everything onto one sheet of paper. So just looking at the drawing here in model space, I can see a few bits of colour that we don't really want to see on the layout. So I can see the green polyline that we use to trap the hatching areas. We don't want that to come into view, and there's also a polyline around the hatching on the section as well. So there's a couple of layers there that we can freeze. So one of them's called fill polyline and the other one is just called polyline. Okay, I must have it current at the moment, so I'll just make layer 0 current just now, and then I can freeze fill polyline. Polyline. Okay, just a few minutes ago I was sneezing pretty heavily, so if that happens again I'll pause the video just before I make a unholy racket. Okay, we do have a little bit of a gap between the plan and the tops of these trees, just enough to work there. It might be wise just to move all this slightly further down, but I think we'll be okay just as it is. Another thing that I would do is make sure that something like these section markers are quite close to the plan, and we can break that as well. We don't want the line going right the way through as strong as that. It's going to kind of take over a little bit. So I'm going to use the break command, BR, enter, and switch your O snaps off for this because it tends to jump to the end of the line. So I'm just going to break it in the doorway and drag through. You can see how it's shortening, and break it to about here. So there's enough of a marker there to do the job. Okay, so don't think there's anything else we need to do here. So we'll go to the layout, and this is kind of where we'd done a kind of a test layout earlier on an A3 piece of paper with a viewport that was set to 1:75 scale. Okay, so what we need to do first is get the paper bigger. So we right click the layout, page setup manager, modify. Okay, it's still using the same printer, DWG to PDF. Okay, but the paper size is too small. So let's look for ISO. We'll go for the full bleed paper, A1. So ISO full bleed A1 841 by 594. Everything else stays the same. The pen assignments, we'll come back to this in a second, just because I want to show you how to specify a different location for your pen assignments. Okay, one thing you could add on now is plot transparency, because the water in the section in the pool has been told to be 50% transparent, so it won't use that unless you put the switch on there. So we're okay now, and close. Okay, so we've got a much bigger piece of paper with no margins visible. Okay, now when you're rearranging viewports, you can switch off ortho as well. So nothing active here. And firstly, we'll make this viewport bigger because we want to have the plan at 1:50. 1:75 is a bit of a strange layer. Sorry, a bit of a strange scale to use. So click the viewport, click the grip in the corner, and then just move that out. You know, probably more than double the area, just so we've got a bit of flexibility. Okay, then you go inside the viewport, so you double click inside. Okay, so the 3D tools here jump in as well as the display style. Hold your middle mouse button, bring the plan more central in the viewport, and then adjust the scale. So instead of 1:75, change that to 1:50. Okay, so it's pretty much filling that viewport now. If you didn't have the viewport big enough, go outside the viewport, double click, adjust the size, and redo the, well, you shouldn't need to redo anything, you just adjust the size to reveal more of the plan in this kind of fashion. Okay, what I'm going to do is bring the viewport snug to the plan. So I don't want to miss anything off, but I also don't want to see the tops of these trees. So if I bring that in between these two, should be okay. Just make sure I don't chop off the bottom of the plan as well. Okay, now for repositioning, you can use this grip in the middle, and this, if ortho's off, this just lets you reposition this wherever you need on the paper. Okay, I want a little bit of space underneath for a title, so maybe go up a bit more. Okay, so a comfortable bit of space for a title to go in there. Okay, press escape. So that's my plan set correctly. In model space, the section is drawn below the plan. But in the layout, we want to see the section above the plan. Okay, so this gives us an opportunity to use the panning, but in a straight line. Okay, so firstly we copy the viewport with ortho on. So switch ortho on. I'm on the 3D tools here. Let me just change to the drafting and annotation workspace. Okay, so copy, pick the viewport edge, enter. Base point can be anywhere because we can see where we're going, and we'll just copy that viewport until there's a little bit of a gap between the two. Okay, press enter to stop. Now panning down, and I'm going to bring the viewport onto the paper. So click once and just stretch that downwards. Okay, escape. Okay, so they're exactly in line with each other because it's just a straight vertical copy. So we'll zoom in a bit closer now, and then activate this viewport. So we double click inside, and this is when we use -P. So the minus, remember, takes away any dialog boxes. So -P, enter. So we want the plan to slide upwards to reveal the section. So if I click near the bottom and then click near the top, we're starting to see the top of the section. We need to do that again, about the same amount. Okay, it's a bit too high up now. I'd like to see the bottom of the section round about this position. So -P again, from here to here. That looks good. Got a decent amount of ground fill. Double click outside now. That's nice and safe. Okay, remember, if you want to see the whole piece of paper, do Z, enter, A, enter. Okay, now what we'll do, it's a bit trickier this time, we want to get the elevation sitting in this view. Okay, and remember the elevation is actually round the side of the plan. Okay, back to paper space. So let's copy again, copy the viewport, enter. Base point can be anywhere. Okay, so you can see here that the viewport's too wide for what's left of the paper, but that's okay. Enter to stop, and do what we did before. We bring the viewport onto the paper. Okay, anything that's beyond this white line won't end up on a PDF. Escape. Okay, double click inside. Now, if you're using the files that we've been kind of building on, then you could use the view command here. So V, enter. Okay, inside here in the model views is the elevation view. Notice it remembers the UCS that was built into it as well. So you set current, apply, OK. So that's a sophisticated way of doing it, to go straight to that view and the UCS. Okay, if you hadn't saved the view, then we would need to do this. In this viewport only, we would zoom out, find what should be a horizontal line on the elevation. So this white one here is probably the easiest to get at. Do UCS, enter, object, pick this line. A bit difficult to see, but the X and the Y axes have now shifted. Okay, Y is now running this way, X is running that way. You then do plan and enter twice. So it rotates our view in relation to the drawing. Okay, we can now zoom in on the elevation, set the scale 1 to 50. Okay, and then a bit of fine tuning. Okay, now what we really want here is the ground line for the section, the general ground level, which is this and this, to be the same line as the elevation. So what we do here is move the viewport using the end of that line as the base point, but line up perpendicular to this. This is really pretty tricky. Okay, so it's move, pick the viewport, enter. Let's put the object snaps on, check the object snaps. I don't need center or midpoint, so endpoint, intersection and perpendicular will be okay. Okay, the base point is either the bottom of this black line or the bottom of the yellow. Bottom of yellow would be fine. This one's probably the most logical one, so use that as the base point. Then move your cursor over this pink line, and we're looking for the perpendicular object snap to appear round about here. So you keep your cursor here, you tap the tab key, and there it is already. It's come straight to where I need it to be. Left click your mouse without moving the mouse. Okay, pretty tricky maneuver. So let's just do that again, just to show you that again. Let's get a bit closer. So let's move, pick the viewport, enter, object snaps on. Let's even reset those. So okay, base point, put your mouse over where you're wanting to line up with, then tap the tab key. Perpendicular icon is now where we want it. Left click and it moves. Okay, so those two pink lines are completely in line with each other, yet in model space they're at 90 degrees to each other. So it's pretty neat way of working. We're kind of transparently going through the viewport to get to the bits we need. Okay, the trees are poking over the top now, so we'll just bring that down a bit. Probably switch my object snaps off here. Okay, just come downwards, and that's it in line. So we're in line in this direction, and we're in line in this direction. So you see the tops of the walls are in line, tops of the building are in line. Makes it much easier to understand if things line up properly. Okay, we've lost the line type here, the dashed lines have disappeared. So that, to restore that, it's LTS, enter, and this is going to be a fraction, and it's usually based on the number that you're using for the scale in the viewports. So if it's 1 to 50, then if you tried 0.5, okay, so that's brought the line types to life, but they're a bit chunky, so I think I'll go to a line type scale of 0.3. That looks about the right number of dashes that you would draw by hand. Okay, so the final viewport is for our axonometric. So probably easiest to copy the plan because that was the axonometric is sitting in the right orientation to that. So this is what we're doing. We're going to have it smaller than this because it would take up most of the A1. Okay, so copy this viewport, just bring it to the side, and it's going to be a fair bit smaller. Okay, switch ortho off, click the viewport, click the grip, and let's give ourselves a bit of space around this. Okay, it's probably a little bit taller than it is wide, but we can adjust that once we get the axonometric into view. Okay, so press escape, double click inside the viewport, hold your middle mouse button, find the axonometric. As I said, it's much bigger than everything else. It looks quite good like that, but it's too big. So let's maybe go to 1:100 for that. That's a nice comfortable scale. I like that. We're not seeing anything else poking in, so we don't really need to adjust the viewport at all. We just need to consider the space between things now. Do we want that gap to be the same on both sides? We're looking for, generally what you tend to have is more space at the bottom of an image than at the top, so that looks pretty good. I'm envisaging the white space really. Okay, so we're still at 1:100. Double click outside, and we're ready to add some text to this. Okay, so all of these are on the viewport layer. That's important so they don't print. Let's say we do a quick print preview to see how things are working. So you probably find that if you're working on this on campus that if you go to the page setup manager and modify, that any pen settings you did set up will have been forgotten, because the way the logins work, it kind of clears a space temporarily, and if there's anything there, it goes when you log out. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll just show you how you point where it looks for the CTB files. We'll tell it to point to the desktop as well. So I've got a CTB file. If I just minimize all this. Okay, so I've got a CTB file sitting on the desktop, ready to be looked for. So Autocad. So you do this via the options command. So you can type options, or you can find it through the very top left hand corner. Click the button that's up there. It varies depending on which version you're looking at. This is AutoCAD 2022. The button's a wee bit different to the 2023. So the position of the options command is exactly the same though. So it's options. On the files tab, okay, try and remember two numbers, 10 and 4. So that relates to the 10th item down. So printer support file path is the 10. 4 is plot style table search path. So 10, 4. Click the plus sign. Okay, that's where the software's default location is looking. So it's looking on this machine into my user folder. Okay, but we'll add to that. So add another location, browse, click desktop. So you need to make sure that the CTB file that comes with the materials for this is on that desktop. Okay, now click open. Okay, so it's going to look in both of these now. Apply, OK. Let's have a look at the page setup again now. So it was there already because I've got the CTB in quite a few places, but if I modify, then you can see black and colours there, ready for use. I've got a few versions of it for different uses. I've got one that's got just lots of thin pens, one that I use with Ordnance Survey information. Okay, actually that's one of a student's CTB file. Maya Malachuska, I think her name was. So just testing a drawing for her at some point. So Black and Co CTB's found. If it doesn't find it, what you could do is copy the file to the desktop again. That kind of refreshes the file registry, and go through the options items again. And to be honest, you've just got to keep doing it until it shows up, and it will show up. It will. Okay, so that's all fine. Let's just do a preview, see what things are looking like. Okay, and this is pretty good. We've got heavy ground lines, we've got a line hierarchy showing up now around the main objects, secondary, fine. Okay, now we don't have any difference between these two, so let's tweak the pen settings file so that the red shows up even thinner, and we can do that for the grey as well. So I've actually got this this is using grey anyway, so we could leave that one, but we'll make the trees even thinner, so half a line, half a thickness again, just there. But this is looking nice. It's like the way the space is flowing, but I can see here that that gap looks a bit uncomfortably big compared to this side, so I'm just going to nudge that view across a little bit. I'm not going to go so far as measuring it, but by eye that gap is a bit too big, so I'd rather have a bit more space on this side. But then again, we do have a relationship here. Maybe that being in line with the door looks quite comfortable. These are the sort of things you look for in the layout. So right click and exit. So that was a print preview, so I can just click OK here. I was going to change the CTB, so I'm going to just edit this slightly and make the red even thinner. Okay, so the red at the moment is going to print black, but it's 0.1 millimeters. Let's make it 0.05. Save and close. Okay, let's see if that's working. Preview. So the people and the trees should be thinner. It is. So you see we've got fairly thick, thin, very thin. So you're just trying to get depth into your drawings wherever you can. So that's all looking tidy. So we need some text now, some titling. So exit that. And we can just click OK because that was just in page setup, and close. Okay, so firstly we start off with making the annotation layer current. So we've got annotation, okay, and then ST for style. And so there is a style created that's going to use the Arial font. It says, well, that's okay, I could just use that. The problem with this is that standard is standard for every AutoCAD drawing, and older versions use different typefaces, so you're best to create a new style. Okay, let's call it Annotate, and OK. We'll use a different font. Let's use Verdana, so it's alphabetical list. Verdana. Don't set the height. We've got enough space on the drawing to leave the width factor alone. Okay, so set current, yes, close. So we're going to do just a simple hierarchy of text. Main titles 10 millimeters, subtitles 6 millimeters, and then just general room names 3 millimeters. And you would think 3 millimeters is too small, but it's perfectly legible. It's good. Okay, so I'm going to start around about here and just zoom in a bit closer, and the command is we're just putting individual pieces of text, so DT will be fine, dynamic text. Okay, pick a start point, the height. Generally, so I've been doing stuff in this drawing already, so it's kind of defaulted to a huge height, but generally the height will say 0, but you need to make it 10 and enter. The rotation, writing from left to right, is an angle of 0. So 0, enter. Get cursor now. So this is Casa, Gaspar. Okay, what we'll call this study sheet, and scale 1 to 50, unless noted. Okay, unless noted. Okay, because the axonometric isn't 1 to 50, but the rest are. So enter twice now. So this bit of information isn't quite as important as these two. So we'll change the height of this. So use the change command, ch, enter, pick piece of text. Okay, we've got the height option down here. Let's make it 6 and enter. Okay, now you can close the change command, press escape. So there's a bit of a big gap between the two there. It'd be nicer if the gap was about the same as this. Okay, so if you want to, you can just do a few temporary lines. Okay, so just doing it by eye, and then you copy those two, move those two down. So move them down. Okay, so we want our piece of text to touch this one, and then we've got them pretty close to being the same distance apart. Nobody's going to notice a fraction of a millimeter. So does that work? You understand how I did that? Okay, so just temporary lines. That's sitting a little bit too far out from the edge, so we'll move all three, enter, ortho off, base point can be anywhere, and we just decide where that's going to sit. So about there, and I positioned it there so that that distance is about the same as that one. So it looks fairly tidy. Escape. Okay, so main title, subtitle, but we'll use this as a subtitle for the plan, section, elevation, and axonometric. Okay, so copy. Okay, base point can be anywhere. Oops, let's try that again. Copy, pick that, enter. Base point somewhere above and to the right. And I'm looking to line this up with the edge of the plan. Just by eye, trying to line that up with the edge of the plan. This piece of text can overlap the viewport edge, that's not a problem, because the viewport edge doesn't print. Okay, so I'm roughly in line with that, it looks pretty close. Double click the text, and this is plan. Enter to finish it. Right, ideally my text lines up as well. So ortho on now, copy, pick the plan, word, enter, base point, and we're sliding up to the edge of the plan till I'm just below the section. Okay, so this is section XX apostrophe. Okay, then we copy that to the side. So placing it here may be a bit far away from the elevation. It would look tidy and in line, but let's see what it looks like. So copy, pick, enter, base point anywhere. So do you see the problem there? Because we've got this solid fill hatching here, that looks comfortable, but here it looks uncomfortable. Okay, so in this instance I think I would move that up a bit closer to be a bit nearer the elevation. Okay, so I'll move. I'm a bit far away from the line there, but I'm going to go to about here and just move it across a tiny bit this way. Okay, so this is the west elevation. Okay, then another copy of this somewhere possibly down here in line with the bottom. You could draw the lines on to help you. So using object snaps but drawing two objects inside the viewport, I want to put my title in this corner here. So copy, pick, enter, O snaps off, ortho off, base point, and by eye I'm just going to put it in that corner. Okay, this is axonometric. Okay, but this needs an extra line of text. Okay, so for this, if you add insertion to your object snaps, okay, do DT, enter, O snaps on, hover over this, and it will find the insertion point of the text. The height, though, so that we get so that we have like a bit of a hierarchy here as well, the height will be 3. Enter, rotation will be 0, enter, okay, press space, enter, and this will be scale 1 to 100. Enter twice. So the edge here is in line, but we've gone down a size, and these can go in the bin. So do you see how that kind of works? Looks nice and tidy. We've got a bit of a hierarchy working. Okay, well, so said section XX here, we need to show which side is X and which says X apostrophe, so people can tie the two together, because that could be facing the other way. That could be the other way round. Okay, so what you could do is copy this, enter. We don't need the object snaps or ortho just now, and just bring that down. Okay, edit it now, double click it. So this is X, then copy that, enter, base point, ortho on, and we'll slide that across, and this gets edited to X apostrophe. So you see how we start tying the information together. Okay, the last item here is to add some room names, and some of these can be copied onto the section as well. Could copy them onto the axonometric if they're right size, and that will really help arrange and allow people to understand what's going on. The elevation doesn't generally get much in the way of text. I wouldn't really annotate an elevation in the same way I would a section or a plan. So let's start with the plan. Okay, DT, enter. Okay, the last piece of text we put in was 3, which is fine. So we just find a base start point. Height 3, so press enter. Rotation 0, press enter. And this is the garage. Okay, a bit different now. We're just going to plop the text in and then tidy it up. So I'm just panning to the next space, so the command hasn't finished yet. Just click once, and the next piece of text is starting here. So this is a shower room, shower RM. Okay, this is a bedroom. Okay, we've got a cupboard here. We'll maybe just call it a store, so that'd be ST dot. Here we've got the living space. Now, if I had lots of time, what I would do is try and get these even lined up. I'm going to skip that just now. So this is the entrance, so let's just identify that. Entrance. We've got a courtyard here. Courtyard. Okay, over here we've got a pool. Okay, down here we've got gardens. I'll not identify those, I think I'll just leave those. Here we've got a kitchen, and here we've got a dining room. Okay, and once you put your last piece of text in, that's when you press enter twice. Okay, now I would generally switch ortho off and just look carefully at the text, make sure nothing's overlapping. Make sure you don't want to do things like this because you won't be able to read the text because of the shading and the heavy line. Okay, but you're just looking for positions that are comfortable. So courtyard here just a little bit higher up and better centered. Entrance could maybe just sit on that, maybe in the same between the tiling there, so it's in line with that one. Living space, I just want that to look as if you can get around the piece of text and into the small corridor. Store, let's put that in the corner. Shower room's going to really have to just kind of sit there, there's no corners to work with, the room's so small. Bedroom, I can't fit the word here without it overlapping the bed, so I'm just going to line that up as if it's kind of centered on that wall. And the garage can go up here. And same with the pool, I'll just tuck it in the corner a bit better. Okay, so some of that could go up onto the section. So copy, could use ortho for this one. So we've got pool, got the courtyard, sitting on top of the tree there though, so that's not great. So I'm going to move that across. Courtyard, and we'll copy now, copy the entrance. Okay, try and line that up with courtyard. Best way to get things lining up is to copy it and then edit it. Okay, I've got the living space as well. This one can go up high, so that saves any problem with alignment. Okay, and then we can copy some of these onto the axonometric. So we don't have room corners that we can use now. So ortho off now, and we'll plot the living space in there. Put the pool there. Garage. Entrance, courtyard, kitchen. We haven't done full detail in the axonometric, but it allows us to generally identify which way round the building is, and we've got a bedroom there. So that is the annotation. Remember, zoom all, Z enter, A enter. Let's just make sure we check our print preview very carefully. So plot, preview, and this is where you really do check it, looking for any issues at all. So this is when you want to pick up any problems. So it's a very careful check over. Okay, all looks okay up there. Axonometric's looking okay. Plan, we've looked at this numerous times, but still want to make sure we haven't accidentally deleted something or added something unnecessarily. No, all looking good, and the water's looking a nice kind of pale shade, not too strong. The trees look interesting as well. We've got a bit of colour coming through because they're using colours above colour number 9, as is the grey fill and the grey for the paving. So it just plays it down a bit. Okay, so you right click now and plot, I'll let it go to my desktop. Okay, this was the Casa Gaspar finished. Oh, use capital letters, sorry. Save. Take a few seconds to generate. Let's go on to the other screen. Let's maximize that and fold that in. Okay. One thing that can manifest itself with generating PDFs, sometimes you see patterning in the fill areas. You can sometimes kind of see a bit of triangulation happening. Looks okay here, but if we take that into Photoshop, sometimes that might show up. One thing I can see here, which wasn't visible on the plot preview, is that the grey is sitting, it's disturbing the, you see the way it's disturbing the black lines. Okay, so not good enough, so we're gonna have to, what we'll need to do is tell the landscaping lines to go behind everything else. Okay, so I'm going to close that and go back to model space. It's everything on the landscaping layer, really. So remember, we did layer control by getting rid of everything else, so we could possibly do that by isolation instead. So we'll isolate the landscaping layer. So use isolate, pick an object. Okay, so that's knocked everything else off. So now it's draw order command, DR, enter, grab everything, enter twice. So the default is to send everything to the back. Okay, now we want to bring everything back on, so we unisolate, and everything should appear again. Go back to the layout, plot. Okay, I'm not going to preview, I'm just going to go straight for the print. Okay, it's on the desktop. Casa Gaspar finished. Let's just save over the top of that one. And let's inspect that carefully again. It's getting close. Let's remember it was down here, we could see that. It's looking better already, so getting closer, closer, closer. Yep, so now the grey isn't disturbing the black lines, we've got the kind of graphic clarity that we want. Okay, takes 2 seconds, worth doing. Okay, all done. Thank you very much. Good luck.